with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mary Jo here. Mary Jo Radcliffe here. Tom Knox
Here.
Jeanette Simonson here. Nick Hillside.
Here.
Victor Carmen.
Yes, Mom.
Brian Dobbs.
Here. And has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to move that we move 5.5, unusually hazardous transportation plan, and 7.1, and this transport bus technology to be the first items we cover because we have a guest with us here.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we'll get right into that. So we have Christy here tonight to talk about both of those items.
You want the plan up, Christy, or you want to just talk? What would you like me to do?
First, everybody explain to the board what an unusually hazardous transportation plan is and what function it serves.
Okay, so according to DPI, if we have students that live within 2 miles of the school that they attend, we are not able to claim reimbursement for transporting them. Unless we have in place what they call an unusually hazardous transportation plan, outlining a particular area or areas that we deem to be hazardous for a number of reasons. It could be because of high traffic areas. It can be because there are no crosswalks between that area and their school. It can be because there are no traffic signals. An example would be any of the students, all of the students living on the opposite side of County Road A from Red Creek. That's considered an unusually hazardous area because we would not want them crossing County Road A to get to school because of the high volume of traffic. It can also be dependent and is sometimes dependent on the grade level of the student. We do not feel that it is safe for elementary students to walk from the downtown area, what we would call the Grove, to go to school. But once they get to middle school and high school, we feel that it's appropriate for them to be able to walk to school because there are sidewalks and crosswalks for them to get there on the most direct route. So if we have those areas that we consider to be hazardous, we then can count them in our ridership numbers at the end of the school year, and we're able to get reimbursement for transporting those students during the school year. So what we have done is we have taken a look at our unusually hazardous transportation plan because it has not been updated since we built Red Creek and removed 3rd Street Elementary. So that changed some of the geographical locations for us. In this area, any of these elementary students would walk to school. Now that those students are at Red Creek, that would be a hazardous situation for them to cross Jefferson Street, maybe, as an example. So we've taken a look at this. We've looked at some of our geographical areas. We've outlined the 2 miles from each school and have identified some areas that needed to be changed because of our building changes. So what we do then is we get our plan together, we make our maps, and then this is something that we take to the county sheriff so that he can look it over, give input, approve it or disapprove it, or say I would approve it with these changes. So we have presented it to Sheriff Waldera, and he has signed off on it and agrees with the areas that we have deemed hazardous for our students. So then our next step would be, Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, would be board approval, and then we would send it on to DPI for their final approval.
Typically, anything within 2 miles from school is not reimbursable transportation, so this allows us to get transportation. That's the whole basis of it. So our biggest hazards are no sidewalks, highways, downtown, across the bridge, an area over there. That's within 2 miles, but it's, having to walk downtown and through that area is a little bit more hazardous across state highways and stuff. So we're just looking for your approval tonight.
Any questions or discussion on that?
I make a motion to approve the hazardous transportation.
I second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And next, Chrissy, I don't know if you have much to say about transportants, but
Just that we're super excited and looking forward to getting it installed. We really think that it's going to be very helpful with the struggles that we have had with behaviors on the bus. I think any of our teachers can say that they have difficulty sometimes in the classroom when they have 20 or 25 kids. And when you have one person with 40 to 60 kids, and then they're driving a 40-foot vehicle, and their back is to the students, it's a very difficult job. And so we're just super excited that this is available to us, that we've been able to invest in it. We really think that these new camera systems are gonna help, and I know the administrators, they see this multiple times a day, with the behaviors that we're experiencing on the school bus. And the fact that there will be multiple cameras in each bus instead of one camera in each bus. So we are on their schedule for them to start installation on Monday, August 28th. So unfortunately, it's not all going to be in place when school starts. But within a couple of weeks, we hope to be up and running, and we're very hopeful that it's going to make a very positive difference.
Maybe it will help in recruiting bus drivers also.
It could, if they know that they have that support behind them, that it could very well.
I
Yeah.
talk a lot at new in-services, and I very seldom get a lot of feedback from drivers. Today, there was a lot of enthusiasm when I was talking about transportation, so they might even be willing to tolerate the pads if we end up, the tablets if we end up going that route. So we're hoping that they feel that support. Just as an aside, when we posted on Facebook that the district was making that investment in transportant, there are several people who started sharing another app that they have that's called Track My Ride or something like that, where a family can tell exactly where the bus is on the route. So if their child is 20 minutes away, or the bus got stuck behind somebody and is running 10 minutes late, a parent would be able to open up an app and view exactly where that bus is. That would be a very nice feature. That is a significant upcharge from where we are currently purchasing. And so with our dollars being finite, we thought we would make this investment right now and then see how well it works and see if it's we're getting our bang for the buck, and then we can look at the financial implication of that next level. Because what that means is there's a tablet on every bus, and as a kid gets on, they either have to punch in their code or they have to scan something so that the parent knows their kid is on the bus. So that is a very, very nice safety feature too, that everyone knows exactly who's on that bus. But that is a significant upcharge, and this is already a very pricey system, but we just, the frustration level with bus behaviors last year was at an all-time high. And so we're interested in trying this part of the solution, and then we'll see where it goes. The other suggestion that was made as soon as it was put on Facebook was, as we talked about unusually hazardous roadways, some of our middle school and high school students that walk from the Fillmore area and have to cross Highway 54 to get to the middle school, high school, there was a lot of concern about that. And so I talked to Brad Chown with the city, and he gave us the authorization to purchase flashing school zone signs on both sides of the road, and so Kent is already getting those ordered. When people come on Highway 54 there, they don't slow down for those kids that are walking. Mr. Chown did point out, if the students were to walk all the way down, there already is a lighted crosswalk by the Lunda Community Center, but students are certainly taking the path of least resistance and not walking all that extra distance down there. So.
The other thing I wanted to say about transport, while it was pricey, the cost of the cameras themselves, to get 5 cameras to the price of 1 that we have now with our old system, was about the same cost. So the cost of the cameras has come down quite a bit. Our old system is pretty antiquated, where Chrissy would have to run to the bus, get the tape out, take it to the garage, watch it on her special viewing ability, make a cut of that tape, send it to the principal. Where now it's live streaming, you can actually see it going on live. I mean, that is just huge. But of course, there's a little bit of a cost for the live streaming option because of the cellular. So, and we did a test run of it in a car, and it was better than I thought it'd be. I thought it would drop service a lot more times. We had Joey back at the garage while Christy and I were out riding with the ref, and she could watch where we were and follow our route, and we had pretty good connectivity with the camera most of the time.
Did you have to make any corrections? Jill, you're driving too fast.
Yeah.
So we don't know where the buses are then?
Yeah, we'll be able to pull that up on a screen and know exactly where the buses are, as long as, like Jill said, you know, the call service doesn't drop, we would have that pulled up on, we can pull it up on a map.
We don't go very far on 54 before the service gets real sketchy, and then there's some areas out by Hickson, right? And then by the Mission.
And we purposely went in a couple, we picked out a couple of areas when we went on this test run that we
Pretty good.
knew our own cell phones were sketchy. And we were pretty impressed with not driving service a lot.
The difference is it has an antenna, and like he says, the top of the bus will basically become a big antenna as well. It will know how fast buses are going as well, because that's been a call I get sometimes, or Kirsty will get. And if it's immediate, we'll be able to see that kind of stuff, but even if we drop service, we won't lose the camera part of it, right? So that it'll still be recording, we can rewind and go back and watch that.
Could you come back like in a few months and tell us how it's going?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Are you able to detect if it's being tampered with, like some of it's table read or something like that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And we would get an alert sometime. I don't know, that's something we'll have to look at to see if there's an alert, if it says that the camera's not functioning or that
It
there's
just
not.
say that if the camera's not functioning, we would know.
Okay, yeah.
And the nice thing is that, like in the video, they talk about how even without what the upgrade is, like if someone calls, you can tell where the bus is now, one for the parents, calling for every 15 minutes, but at least we get something for now.
Yes.
Anything else for Christine?
So that does not need any action. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to 5.1, gifts and grants.
Sure. So the Women's Skyline Golf Association did a special golf outing to help support the Tiger golf teams. And Taylor Nichols, one of our middle school staff members, kind of facilitated that in 1,000 inches, did I say? Sorry. Oh, pay attention. Inches. And so it was a $1,673 donation from the Skylines Women Association. After the notes were written, we also received notification that Vicki Mikulski was successful in her homeless grant at the amount of $25,000. And so I know that she has shared with you the focus of her McKinney-Vento work, and she's one of the 2 reports, I believe, that comes each year. And so that grant dollar amount has increased over the years, and so she always works to put that to good use. So the grant does need your approval, the gift doesn't necessarily need it.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5.2, there are no public comments tonight. 5.3, annual operating resolutions. That's in your packet. I would like to do this as consent. Unless someone wants to pull out an individual resolution, discuss.
The only thing I added this year was we are not always as disciplined about making sure when the board elects officers in early May to make sure that we designate Marty as the deputy clerk. And so it makes sense that that happens as part of our annual operating resolutions as well. So that is the only change from previous years. These are all things that the board is required to adopt on an annual basis just for our operating.
Make a motion to approve the annual operating resolutions.
Seconded. Motion is second. Further discussion? And all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next is the TCO updates.
One of you guys might be interested in sharing. I can highlight the poster for you. The fun run walk, so that it can be fun for all, fun run walk, is happening on September 16th. Unfortunately, the registration, in order to get the t-shirts ready on time, has to be done by August 25th. And so right now, our enrollment is extremely low. And this is a super motivated subcommittee of the TCO, the fundraising/events committee. And they were really hoping for a big launch this year. And right now we've got less than 10 participants enrolled. And so we are printing these flyers for each of the school buildings, and hopefully by sharing with all staff today, staff will help to highlight it with families as they come in for open house as well. Would one of you want to give updates about the TCO last meeting, or otherwise I certainly can?
I just don't remember who all of our officers
I think it was on that other sheet. In there?
It's in our packet. So the officers, and also, the TCO decided to meet, I believe it's the second Wednesday of each month. Is that correct, me, Brad, is that correct?
I'm confirming that that sounds correct. The next one is September 13th.
I think it's the second Wednesday of each month
Yep.
at 6 o'clock at Red Creek. So you can spread the word. We would love everybody to attend. There are like 5 or 6 other groups, but I don't remember what they are that people can become involved in. And we just also decided that school board members should not be able to serve as officers. It makes sense.
Have they elected bylaws, or they presented some for initial discussion? or-
Yeah, so they discussed, they presented a couple of the members kind of revamped previous PTO bylaws to fit this. And then there was some points of discussion, the officers are taking those back to kind of revamp. So I'm hoping September 13th we'll have, if not the final solution, very close to the final solution. They're kind of going through starting the process of doing a whole 501c3 bit, and be opening a checking account, and we can transfer the funds we're holding over to them. And yeah, they seem to be off and running. So great to see.
It's exciting, exciting. So that fundraising events committee, they are not interested in providing leadership to the TCO as a whole, but they're very interested in sponsoring events for the community to come together. So I think it's great that there's multiple avenues for people's engagement.
So, no further questions. That's 5.4. We've already covered 5.5. Next is the soccer co-op that come in.
Yep, and so no changes. We have a co-op for boys soccer, or fall soccer. We certainly do have some girls that play on that team as well. And Melrose Monroe is interested in joining the co-op again, as are we. I talked to Nate Wildenberg, the coach, today, and he said he was a little bit nervous about team numbers and feeling like we are definitely going to need Melrose Monroe in order to be able to field a competitive team. So we are fully in support of that signature.
I move to approve the soccer co-op.
I will second that. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That is the 5 series. 6.1, focus on purpose, the August professional development.
So instead of just the August professional development schedule, last week there was an awful lot of activity at the London Theater for the conscious discipline training. And so I asked Nicole if she would give everybody an update on that conscious discipline work.
So I have a handout for everybody, and then the real experts of conscious discipline thought they would be willing to share, Melanie and Rachel. I attended the first part of conscious discipline, and I was super impressed with the presentation. The feedback from teachers has been, so they give you go ahead?
Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah, well, I guess we can send her an email. So we had a trainer from Florida, certified conscious discipline trainer come in. Our Spencer, she did a wonderful job. The purpose of conscious discipline is really to help build relationships, create a safe classroom for students, how to build relationships and help them achieve a executive state of their brain. Conscious discipline is rooted in neuroscience, so helping the students' brain get to a place where they can learn.
And so the first day was really an understanding of the science behind conscious discipline. And then the second day was all of the strategies of things that teachers can do and use in their classroom to support students. So at all levels, like, we need to build connections with students and have relationships, because the relationship is the most important thing in the classroom, that when students feel safe and secure in the classroom, they're in a brain space where they can actually take on learning. And so everything that Mara talked about for those 2 days was rooted within that.
I would say that the teachers are really excited about trying some things in their classroom. Some of them felt really passionate about what they learned, and some are gung-ho about implementing all the different pieces of it. And so we're excited to try some things.
Can I ask you guys to talk a little bit about it? So we've heard for many, many, many years that it's all about relationships, all about relationships. Could you dig a little bit deeper as to why conscious discipline is different in that? Because my perception is that it's about the adult control. So could you speak to that piece a little bit?
So oftentimes when you compare it to a classroom curriculum, like you open up a book and you're teaching to a student, that doesn't tell you how to build a relationship with another person, with another student. It doesn't tell you how to build somebody that may challenge you as a teacher. And conscious discipline gives you strategy. And so when, and it even works with adults too, it's great. So when somebody is in what they call lower center of their brain, they're fight or flight, they're seeking safety. And so it talks about strategies as a teacher to help a student. So maybe a student comes in, a great example is at forestry. The first couple of days, we often have students that don't want to separate from their parents. And so building relationships, like you are going to tell the child, reassure them that they're safe. And we have a lot of different structures that they talk about again on the second day, things like having a brain smart start, which is, it's based in 4 parts, having eye contact, touch, a playful situation, playful situation, forgetting my other one. But you need those 4 components, whatever my 4th one is that I'm forgetting right now, I apologize, to build a relationship. And she gave us lots of different strategies on that.
Yeah, I would agree that it's about the student coming in and knowing that there's somebody else in the building that makes them feel safe as well. And so if a student isn't feeling safe in their environment, then like Melanie said, they're gonna have a really difficult time and won't be able to learn it. So being able to establish that safety and knowing that they have somebody in the building that feels that way, and even bringing in some of their home to school. They talked about having a friends and family tree, and so the students would bring pictures of people outside of school, could be whoever the adults are in their lives, and they bring those pictures in so that it's there, the other kids can see it, but then it also makes them feel safe. When they're at school, they can go to that picture and remember that I have somebody out there that makes me feel safe and just security.
When you look around our spaces too, we all, I'm sure, have pictures of the people that are important to us. And that connection, bringing that connection from home to the school is an important step that they talk about in conscious discipline. So bringing the family in as a partner in the student learning is an important part.
Is there explicit parent education components or handouts or tools that could be shared with parents along the same line?
Yeah, there's also strategies for if a child has got challenging behaviors at home, there's definitely things that the parents can do in their home that can be replicated from the school to home that they use. One of the things is having children have a bedroom, but having a designated safe spot. So a safe spot is different than a timeout. Whereas a timeout is a punishment, a safe spot is viewed as a place for students to go to, or students to go to, where they can be coached through their emotions to get back to that calm state, which sometimes can be very naturally, sometimes can be very challenging. They talk about from other strategies for parents, again, building on that playful touch or playful situation. Eye contact and those foundational pieces, they're the same things that you need to do at home.
And I think how we communicate with our students, the language that we use when we are communicating with them, and being positive about the language that we use versus the don't do this. They talked a lot about how the phrase no or don't, we don't have a visual for that in our minds. And so restating what the expectations are very clearly can help, and that helps in the classroom as well.
Is this something that teachers right now have a choice in dabbling in? Or, and is it, are we focusing on a certain grade level right now or a school? Or is it thought, I don't know what's.
So we have participants from Forest Street, Red Creek, and the middle school there, and I don't remember if there was anybody from the high school there, but building a relationship is necessary at any grade level.
It was invitational, to your point, that it was invitational to attend the training, right?
Yes.
Attendance was super high,
Super
of our teachers.
Yeah,
So
And
there's
so-
definitely interest.
right, yeah.
And so Melanie bought some conscious discipline books like her first year in the district, and her staff did a book study on it, and that was different levels of engagement at the time, right? It was something that you all did together, but some enjoyed it more than others and dug in a little bit deeper. And then, as the board is very aware, when you ask teachers what their greatest challenges are, it's time to get all the things done that they need to get done and challenging student behaviors. And so when we got that out of school time grant, we were able to bring the conscious discipline trainer here. We never would have been able to afford to host that training if it were not for that grant, because she usually does, like she's from Florida, they usually do much bigger cities, not Black River Falls rural area. But that grant helped us to be able to do that. And because we brought it here, most of our elementary staff chose to participate, right? And it was voluntary, they got paid. We have $150 stipend for teachers doing professional learning on a non-contract day. And so they would have gotten that stipend, also paid for by the grant and that training. And while they were together, the Red Creek staff said, can we get the books, right? So Brandon called and we quickly got them ordered, and we're hoping they're delivered tomorrow because the staff is really anxious to start the school year with some of that. And so it certainly started off as an idea that was introduced by leadership, and certainly has become something that the teachers are driving themselves.
You have to take it on as an adult, right? You have to, you can give people tools. This particular PD gave us the opportunity to have the why behind it very explicitly, and then connect it with the tools that they can directly use. And I think that, I love conscious discipline, and I've used it for years. But it was great to sit back and see the teachers really enjoying that as much as we've been talking about, so.
And you have the money to follow up with that, with other trainings at different times?
Yeah, and a lot of the things, a lot of the tools and structures that they talk about with conscious discipline are actually things that can be replicated for free. So the books are one thing, but they talk about having wish well boards and friends and family boards, and that doesn't necessarily have to cost any money.
But to your point, so it's not one and done, right? So that we don't talk about it one time and then never provide that learning. Yep.
And one thing is that it really ties nicely to a lot of the things that we're already doing. So hopefully it doesn't feel like another thing for teachers, that we want to make sure that we bring it all together. We've got PBIS going pretty strongly, and so we can join that together. So it was a 2-day training that was open to anyone who wanted to be a part of that. But then we also had an additional day for, it's called champion training, if you want to talk.
So that one was built off of the previous 2 days, and it talked about how you can use that to coach the adults in the building. So it was really geared at, we invited our leaders from around the district in, and did some additional training around that, how to build empathy in a classroom. It was a huge point.
There are good things about it, for sure. I was trained many years ago myself, so. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Very much.
Thank
It is 6.6, we have a lot of recommendations. Also, I noted there's two that make the press. So
Great. Yes, an awful lot happening. So you can see what is up on the board. Obviously, the professional staff needs your action. The support staff does not need that action. We believe when we look at our professional staff for next week, Tuesday, student count, we have one teaching position that is not currently filled. All the rest of them we have people in. I will tell you that the principals have had to be super creative with filling some of those. We have several of our support staff members who are willing to be risk takers and are moving into some teaching positions, and we will do all that we can to support them to make sure it's a positive experience, and while they're also working on certification. But it has been a busy month from Marty's office. Today the PD ended at 2:30. I think by 2:35 there's a line of people outside of Marty's desk. I just need this, I just need that, I just wanted that, I just need that. Like all the people bringing in all their paperwork and all that stuff. So, busy time for sure, but some really good people joining our team.
And then opening is in the WIN program, is that correct?
Yes.
And how many aides are we short right now?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I want to say 6.
6. So if anyone knows, we'll get an aide.
We have several good applicants. So, and it's tomorrow interviews with them?
We interviewed this afternoon.
This afternoon, okay.
Are we gonna fill 6
We're not
spots?
gonna ask right now because they haven't talked to any references or candidates yet.
We have lots of good options, like what
Thank you, thank you. Good answer. So that does mean.
Make a motion to approve the new hires.
Second that.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have, that is the 6th series, 7.1, we've covered that one. Behavior education plans, those were in your packet as well.
Sure, so the purpose of the behavior education plans was really to document the need for a partnership between home and school when it comes to student behaviors. It also was to create a common language within the building around behaviors, as well as for a parent to be able to look at their forestry behavior plan all the way through the high school behavior plan and see common themes, right? So that a parent doesn't feel like, well, I don't know the expectations here, we just left that building and blah, 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 right? So hoping to increase the familiarity with all of those expectations and consequences for families. We started this conversation in all of the buildings during the last summer, so summer of 22, and buildings talked through them. It was important that a building didn't just take somebody else's plan and slap their name on it, but instead they had conversations with each one of their teams to make sure that the people that lived and worked in that building could get behind the statements that were included in there. And I appreciate that they really are looking at behaviors as another whole teaching component, right? We have to teach students what those behavioral expectations are, opposed to assume that they just come to us with those already successfully under their belt. So I think the language of the behavior plans really speaks to that. The MLSS, the multi-level systems of support, you can see that it starts with tier 1. Here's what we have going on. Tier 2, here's how things will escalate. And then by tier 3, these are some of those possibilities. So each one of the buildings has one developed, and I've asked that we make sure that we find meaningful ways to engage families in conversation around these as well, so that those behavior expectations can become extremely commonplace discussion in their homes. So when we call and say your child did X, the parent doesn't say, and why is X wrong? Well, X is wrong because it does not allow for the instruction to happen in the classroom or whatever you want to be.
I have a question on page.
Of the high school one?
Scroll, not the high school.
They're not labeled, so what does the?
No, it's
say?
under the first offense, drug use response progression, first offense, right there. I mean, it just says too good for drugs.
Oh.
Why is it too good?
That's the name of the, it's a 6-week like training course on drugs and prevention. And actually we might go to a different one, but we are going to, instead of just giving them the DEP and working on those consequences, we want to build in an education component.
So that's the name of it.
It's the name of the program.
Okay, I just thought.
Sorry, we are also too good for drugs at the high school, so just saying.
But only your first offense.
It's also in.
So that is something new this year, that they want to do mandatory education around the first AODA offense in addition to the deferred expulsion plan, so that it feels like before they get to a potential expulsion with the board, they've had 2 offenses and a very intentional instructional period, and that deferred expulsion plan would be signed in between there, so.
Kim, is that like an internal resource? Is that an online training? And
It's
what
an
is-
internal, so Michaela Burkwalt, our school counselor, has been trained in the one for the second type of drug, the drug use response, and I've been trained in the tobacco response. So it's something that they'll do. The tobacco response is a 4-session training that they would do with us, or education, and then the other one is like 6 weeks.
You're doing that like after school?
It'll be during our advising time.
Okay.
So they'll be put into groups based on
Based on-
their need.
Okay.
I appreciated seeing all the planning, because I've had some parents concerned with discipline, and it's all spelled out there, exactly what will happen, what your expectations are, and that was very complete.
We hope that it builds that confidence in staff as well, so it doesn't feel like everybody is trying to solve all the problems on their own, but that there's a system they can lean on, is the hope behind that communication tool.
Or does this go to the parents as well?
That's, yes. And the hope, so like when you have the open house, Mr. Norton, you're the one that is bringing them together in the, would you explain what your open house looks like?
Open house we have a 45-minute slot for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, where we have our teams present to parents. They introduce themselves, talk a little about themselves, but then give other information out, such as things that are coming up in 6th grade. We talked about parent-teacher conferences, free lunch, about one of the things is behavior education plan, we'll explain to the parents. This year we're starting PBS, and we have this behavior education plan that we piloted last year that we're implementing this year, so.
I did have one comment, and maybe things have changed. I am a former mentor for the Challenge Academy, and it states in the handbook that you may choose to be in that program, and I know it's very strict guidelines to get into that if this is for the parents and to say, oh, we just want to go to Challenge Academy and make that happen. And that's not just a choice parents can make, it's a very strict process, and I'm thinking it's still that way.
The guideline, the entry process is still tough, but it has to be a volunteer program.
Yes.
And so
Voluntary.
Yeah, it's not, we could change that verbiage, right, but it's definitely voluntary, we can't force it. Yep.
Meaning Kim couldn't say, this is your 4th offense, I am making you go to Challenge Academy, that's not what
Anything further on your education? Next is reading legislation. So I've asked that as CISA, as DPI, so all these entities start to unpack what the legislation is, and that's so Nicole's going to talk about the reading, and Jill's going to talk about the new state biennium budget. Because if you've done reading on this, we still don't know what this means, right? It's still I tried to read on it, and it's very dense stuff. So as we learn more about that, I just asked the updated boards.
So you've heard me talk about the science of reading before, so as you can imagine, I am excited that the state is taking a stance on science of reading. So if we go to the next slide, these are just some highlights from the legislation that are pretty clear. One thing, that second bullet talks about that $50 million to create this literacy office and hire reading coaches. So that's going to be tough, right? Like, I'm not sure where those reading coaches are going to come from. So there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. But the big idea is to shift away from what's called balanced literacy to a science of reading approach. And that's been in a lot of 31 other states are utilizing the science of reading approach. And so what we do know from what other states have put this legislation into effect, that it's had an impact in some states, like a few. It's not just big overriding legislation that actually creates change and makes a whole bunch of readers as our teachers, right? So it's good, it's a good step. I'm hoping I've read through the legislation, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't fully understand like how this is all gonna look in the long run, is that it's also gonna impact teacher prep programs and maybe what they're learning and not just have like the 4 tests at the end of the day of the test. So it should impact some teacher prep stuff. But one of the other things I really wanted to highlight is the overall goal of this legislation is they want to increase state test reading scores
scores overall. So on the Wisconsin Forward in the state of Wisconsin, 33.8% of third graders were proficient in reading. So that's the third graders in all of our state, 33.8% were proficient in reading. And if you look at the national trend, you can look at the NAEP, you can look at math tests, you can look at any standardized tests, or at that 30 to 40% mark of kids being at grade level in reading is pretty standard, overall, and not just in the US, but globally for kids who read in English. So like you can replicate that in Canada, Australia, that type of thing. So that's just kind of something. So then, of course, I got really excited when I was doing this. I just need to promise myself that I'm not going to go into the deep end of what science and reading is versus balance of literacy. But just to really simplify it, or really just in a Photoshop, what it means is it's really about what you do as a teacher to help a student become a reader in the most efficient way possible. So that 33% or that 35%, we know statistically that any reading program that you throw at kids, like 33% of the kids, they're going to do great in balanced literacy, they're going to do great in science and reading, they're going to do great in whatever reading program. And it just follows the bell curve. So that 33%, they're going to do great in whatever. There's another group that just needs a little bit more structured, phonics type or science and reading type of programming. And then there's a third group that needs way more intensive instruction. But we do know that if you are able to get the right testing in and know where you're going with your program, that 95% of kids should be reading at grade level. That's something that we should be able to do. It's just a matter of getting there. So those are just some examples. If you want to read through that, I won't read it. If we go to the next slide. This is information from Paul Fisher from season 4. So there's being a lot of, so I, of course, contacted season 4 when I was asked to do this. And all this code is basically telling us is that the timeline is we don't really know what this legislation means yet, and we should expect, around January of 2024, exactly the details of this will be. So there's some stuff in there about specialized plans, and so I'm really curious about the details, because that's where it hit the road, right? There hit the road. And this is from DPI support says that at one point, this legislation, they tied to the legislation that if you were in third grade and not testing proficient, that you would be retained. So if only 33% of kids are at level, can you imagine what that would do systematically? That's thousands and thousands of children. So you would have to totally change your whole entire system if that was to be put in place, and it would cost a lot of money. So then that came out, and so then that when they took that out, the DPI supported it. So if we go to the next slide. This is more information that those are the components of reading that we wanted to impact, and talk about the difference on the left, what science-based reading approach would be versus a whole language or more balanced literacy stuff. So that's just for your reading pleasure. That stuff gets me excited, but probably nobody else in the room. And then we go to the next slide. How are we now prepared for this? All right, so we're in a good spot. We go to the next slide. We have been in the process of implementing curriculum based on the science of reading throughout our entire system. Our teachers have gone through professional development in science of reading. All of our assessments, Dibbles, Amplify, all of that is aligned to science of reading, so we're not going to have to ship any of that. When you hear about us, I want to just highlight Orton Gillingham. That's one of the programs that they've specifically identified as being one of the good ones. CKLA, I know that will as well. And I don't know if they've already called that out or not. They were going to dig for get that later in February. We've been doing a root cause analysis process for that focuses on all the components of reading, and we've also done professional development for special education teachers and writing IP and class and goals based on reading and development. So we've done a lot of work in this area. I saw some statistics, it's only like 30 to 40. I'm told that it's a smaller percentage of districts who have developed and implemented science reading curriculum. So we're in a good space that way. We've made this investment and we're on the right track. So go to the next. And then what it really calls out in the legislation is that again the three queuing system. So that kind of gets demonized in the press a little bit. And it's not really so what all that's talking about is if I would have a reader in front of me and I can't read the word, I might say, hey, look at the picture and use the context to tell me what that word means versus what sound, and then having them blend them together. So that's just, so that works. So we are no longer using reader recovery for first reading intervention, reading recovery, you look at some of the data on that is really tough. It's really expensive programming because it's one-on-one to high elite trained person. And the outcomes across the board haven't been as strong as like you would hope in those situations. We no longer use the level reader book system, and as a result of that, we're in the process of repurposing book rooms so that books are used to support science and reading instruction. So books are always good, and we just need to use them in different ways. And then we've moved away from curriculum with a balanced literacy focus, such as Lucy Culkins and Mountains and Canal. Then the next slide, I believe.
Just one second, just you're like talking at a rapid pace. Take a breath. For the board members that have been following our literacy instruction for many years, you know that Countess and Pinnell is Literacy Collaborative. And so that is the large program that was brought in probably 12 years ago and included the first round of literacy coaches and reading recovery and the highly trained staff. And that is the program that we've just had a lot of pushback on since the very first day of implementation. It wasn't a collaborative process to select that resource. Those resources were training, and we just never felt great about it. And so for us to see this come forward now that Countess and Pinnell does not follow the science of reading and is not supported by proponents of strong reading instruction feels a little bit affirming for our staff members that did not feel like they were armed with quality resources to do that hard instruction. And so just wanted to point that out because at this table over the years, there's been a lot of conversation about literacy collaborative and the reading recovery intervention program.
So my dissertation, a huge part of my dissertation was this topic, and on my committee, so you have a committee, right, that listens to you. One of my committee members was a personal friend of one of the main components of balanced literacy. So I really had to learn a lot about balanced literacy in that process. And there are a lot of positive things because, so I just wanted to say that too. There's a lot of strengths and things that teachers learned and that work that they put in. It's so much value. Like it doesn't all go away. So it's just like really finding the things that are super positive and that help kids move forward and be able to identify those that do and then move away from those things that don't.
Sometimes I think though we forget it is the kid that's learning and it's not the adult. And we think it's a great program. We spend all kinds of money, but it's actually the child and how the child learns that we need to keep focused on and not the way that a program thinks a child should learn. And that's where we get into trouble.
It'd be nice if all kids learn the same way though, right? So what works for these two isn't gonna work for these two.
Correct. And that's why as a teacher, you have to be prepared. Someone by reading,
For certain.
some by doing it, you know, we can't, we're all.
So now you can go to the next slide. I didn't mean to put the brakes on. You were just on a roll.
And there's a last part, like if you want to know more, 'cause it's really interesting. If you want to read or listen to the Zelda Story podcast by Emily Hanford, it's really interesting. So I just linked that for you there. And then Reading Rockets from Louise and Motes, she's really the one that's really promoted in legislation. They talk about her work a lot. So I just linked her website there because it's got good information for you're curious to learn more about reading.
And I read that, what was that book, Knowledge Gap, right?
You read it all, yeah, website.
It's, if you guys are looking for a book to read, The Knowledge Gap, kind of talks about the evolution of how a lot of these literacy things came to be and how the programs kind of went one direction and the other and kind of came, I guess, my summers came back to the phonics stuff, right? And that's, there's a lot of background, how these evolved.
I was saying in the last 45 years that I've been in education, it does that. It's right here.
Yeah.
Here. And if you can take the good pieces out of all the programs, that's what you need to do. Streams.
Any other questions for Nicole? Thank you very much.
So that is 7.3, 7.4, the car, that's progress to achievement.
I like that. my fellow citizens of Jackson County, and my fellow Americans all across the world, good evening. I will just talk exactly 5 minutes. And I will be talking about this data in front of you folks. This data, which you folks are watching, it is backed by 7 other documents. 4 of them are the board policy, 110, policy number 110, educational philosophy. Policy 150, school board power and duties. Policy 152, evolution of school board, operational procedure. Policy 165, code of ethics. All these 4 policies I have quoted supporting this to analyze ourselves. As you folks see, this is the document 1. As you folks see, in this document 1, 452 students out of 804 are behind 1, 2, 3, and 4 grade levels. Could you please? Yes. And if you folks see this guy, this green line, it means students are partially behind. So green kind of gives me a good feeling, but exactly it is not. It is some of the students are partially behind only in their grade level, not many grades. Therefore, altogether, 630 students are behind. Behind in what? Just math and English, not in social studies or science because it doesn't talk about it. These 630 students are behind from 2nd grade to 8th grade. Not 1st grade I'm talking about, 2nd to 8th. I personally know middle school and high school, every inch of it. And I have witnessed over the years, 38 students in 6th grade, 27 students in 6th grade, sometimes 32, there are so many students. Reduce the population of the classroom. I have witnessed that. So let's empower the teachers with the exceptional teaching assistant TA. That TA will be hired by the teacher who is in the hot water. He or she knows the temperature of the hot water. Nobody else knows. So I will explain in a few minutes about how to bring the TAs in our team. Therefore, after seeing all those things, therefore I am requesting all board members have 3 urgent meetings. We could have a vote today. And during those 3 urgent meetings in the future, we could have a decent dialogue. Find out what is going on. And this whole data which you folks are watching, 1 year. It doesn't tell you the whole story. Not at all. I would like to see the data of 2017, 18, 19, see if it aligns with this and authenticate this. Right now, this is just the 1 year. No, I would like to see the whole pattern, the way in finance work, the economics. So this is the only message I have, which I just have a 5 minutes, I cannot talk more than that. So please, let's have a voting. Thanks.
So are you making a motion then? I went here.
I would like to file a motion to have 3 urgent meetings regarding the data we have seen.
Remind you that we are scheduled, as soon as the state reporting comes back from fall, we're scheduled to do that during October and November. So we have a motion on the floor.
So you're saying what, Brad?
So we every year there's fall testing. It
Yeah.
happens in September for every school, is that correct? And then that data comes back Sometimes in time for us to look at that in October, and then the schools talk about their, as part of the PDCA cycle, what their next steps are. Sometimes it hits the October meeting, sometimes it hits the November.
In addition to that, so this data that we're looking at is the local iReady test data. Students take that test 3 times a year, and it is administered right here. The next day, we get to see the results. In fall, usually late October, the state puts out the state DPI public report cards, and that is based off of forward testing and the ACT test that students took last spring. So that testing took place March and April last year, and it takes until the end of October before the state gives us that data. And the board schedules a special board meeting just to dive into that report card data, because that automatically breaks it down into all of our disaggregated groups. It talks about growth or lack of growth. It really is a very, it's a hardy document that's got an awful lot of information in it. And so the board usually takes a whole meeting just to dig into that report card data. And that's the one that we are never positive when the state is gonna put them out or not. The iReady data, what we just saw from last spring, that will be available by our September meeting, might be a little bit tight. By the September, 3rd week in September, will you guys have iReady testing done? No, we will not. So it'll be October meeting before that is ready.
I just want to present or ask the board that we would consider looking at not just percentages, but that we would look at it even in the breakdown of the numbers that fall into. Because even at our meeting, when we discussed the iReady, I clearly could see the numbers, and I wrote on the back of my sheet that we were failing our kids. Because I could see that, yes, the green is a percentage, and then the solid green was a percentage, but that also, the definition says at grade level. It doesn't say that they've achieved that grade level and moving on to the next grade level. They're just getting it. And then when I looked at the next one and I saw that one said 1 to 2, it really started making me look at that. And I'm thankful he brought it out, because it's been bugging me that we look at percentages, and it can really be deceitful when we look at just a certain way of the numbers. So I want to be able to say that we have covered every aspect. We have looked at numbers this way, we've looked at it this way, and see what we get, instead of just looking at it a one way. So as new eyes coming in, that's what I have seen. That's what I saw at that meeting.
And so each of the principals' reports did have a percentage and a number. When they put together their building charts, they did not add the numbers. You're saying that
So when I
transition from numbers to percentages was?
No, I'm saying that, so like if we're gonna bring other things in and look at stuff, I would like to see where we look at these numbers. Well, I'm not gonna
Yep,
take
okay.
through it, but where it says, the top says percentage,
Yep.
correct?
Should we put up the document if I spoke to?
Yeah, and then when you look below it, it says the number.
So those charts are exactly from the report that the principals shared. And it has number of students and it has percentage. Yep.
But if you just totaled up, so only 49 students, what I saw that night.
Yeah.
49 students are at grade level, ready to be moved on. Then I see that was only 15% of the students. Then if you take what 15% of the students, 49 students out of a total of how many? Because those 74 students, they're early on grade level. So that tells me, number one, they were behind to begin with. and they're just now hitting that early
Which
grade
isn't
level.
necessarily true. They could have been advanced in the beginning of the year, and then the second time they tested. So I'm just saying, they don't always move this way. Sometimes kids move the opposite way, right?
But our goal is that they would move
Of
forward.
course.
So I'm just saying, what I'm seeing here is that I then look at the yellow, 110 students are at one grade level below. Then you have the solid red that says 35 students. 35 students are 2 grade levels below. And then 69 students are at 3 or more. And then what are we doing? Are we just continuing to let them go up to the next grade level when they really should not be being passed on?
In your opinion, they should not be passed.
I'm just saying, Shelley, when you look at the numbers, when we say that kids are 69 are just now, they're below grade level, and we're gonna pass them on up to the next grade, and we're gonna set them to fail again in another grade. We are not preparing those kids to be able to keep moving up. And I'm seeing 69 students are truly 3 or more grade levels below. That tells me that our kids, we're just moving them up, and we should not be. We are not doing them a service. We are doing them a disservice. If those kids are testing in the spring, and that is telling me that they should be ready to be passed on to the next grade level, what our numbers are saying are wrong. Those kids should not be moved up.
That's a
I would like to have a comment.
That's completely another discussion, but.
Yeah, Jeanette spoke very elegantly, very great thing. This level of a dialogue I'd like to have. Therefore, I was requesting urgent meeting so we could have this level of dialogue. And the numbers, as Jeanette was talking about, I would like to see teachers' grade. This is IRAD, some test. I would like to see teachers' grade would align with these guys, with these percentages or with these red dot or yellow dot or green. So those things I would like to have a discussion during our urgent board meeting, a dialogue. Where are the teachers' grades? So I would be confident that this is correct. I don't think so. I have a suspicion. This is so many. I doubt.
So there's a significant difference between an achievement test and a student's grades, right? All of our conversations about standards-based grading are intended to bring them closer into alignment. Because the traditional grading system, if you play school well, you attend, you do your homework, you are respectful when you're in class, which are all fantastic traits that we wish all of our students had. In a traditional grading system, you would get an A. However, you also may be reading 3 or more grade levels below because you try really hard, you have a great work ethic, and you do your homework, you're passing the class with an A, but it does not mean that your achievement is at the A level.
But then,
Wait. Go ahead, you're in.
The teacher knows a student for a whole year, so she has a genuine information about his or her academic level. Because I'm a teacher, I'm always support teachers because I know what kind of a hot water they are. So I rely on that data.
Why do you keep saying hot water? Who's put our teachers in hot water?
If lot of students are behind, I'm in hot water. I cannot sleep and I know the temperature of the hot water. So I have to reduce it by going to the board. Can help me, give me tools. So I would like to have this kind of a decent dialogue. She just mentioned Mary Jo Radcliffe, 40 years of teaching experience, 30 years of teaching experience. Tom, I have a 37. We are 100 years of teaching experience sitting in this small room. We can rock the Black River Falls.
I think our teachers will rock the Black River Falls. I don't think we're going to do that. I agree with being concerned about testing. And did you hear that in, we have a board meeting schedule where we will just talk about testing? So I agree with waiting for that to see what there is and then we'll go from there. That's what I would like to see.
We have that scheduled and we have a process to receive that information on a regular basis. And we went through our agenda that we do receive that information. We also, I think, have process and program in place to address what the board supports. And of course, that includes our qualified professional educators to address this issue. And the programs that we have ongoing. Again, on a personal level, I'm going to say, again, that still doesn't say everything at once. Everyone, again, in a different way. Some kids are not going to be very successful, but not ever be at a high level. And I think we need to really look at when kids are going on that score. And not all kids are coming into our school wanting to achieve a high test score. They don't care about that. And that all comes from home too. How important is school and how important it is to pay attention, do your best. Be nurtured by your families, and we have a lot of challenges that way. And I believe we have professionals in place to address that. But I would agree to keep with our schedule of giving our regular update and meeting just when we address that. And that's coming up this fall.
I would like to see us do a little bit more than just wait for those tests. I would like to know, for me, I think it's important, but the teachers with those kids, 7 hours a day. And when I think about that, I would hope that they're looking at daily assignments and grading them. Are they 50% correct? Are they, to see where a child is going, how they're doing in the classroom. All of this is, we can give them the best relational stuff around, but if we're not helping them academically to be successful,
You've seen all the tools that the teachers are trying to work with.
I have seen that.
No, you guys have not seen the whole MLSS. We've invited you a couple times to dive a little deeper so that you know what we're doing for those kids in the red.
But that's where, Shelley, I feel as a grandparent and asking how my grandkids are doing, asking my daughter-in-law who homeschools 3 kids, I ask how their grades are, what are they doing? I am not saying that teachers are not doing anything, because by golly, today it's hard. But as a board, it is our responsibility to make sure that number one, the teachers have all the tools, which I'm not saying they don't, but all the tools, and I believe that we need to make sure that we are putting academics before a lot of other things, because in the state of United States alone, our kids are failing. And I heard that just not too long ago. Across the board, the majority of our kids are failing in reading, they're failing in math, they're failing in science, social studies. And we just accept this is how it should be.
Strong.
Well, you can disagree with it. I can choose to disagree with you guys.
100%.
But I do believe I have seen where, I'm looking at this right here. Yeah, testing, I'm a poor test taker. But I will tell you one thing, when I went to school, I learned how to read in first grade.
We're ready to read that.
I was ready to read. I was not ready to read at 3 years old, 4 years old, or 5 years old. That is where the social stuff and learning comes in. But when I hit first grade, I was ready to learn to read, and so were a lot of my classmates. Then we did math. We learned the basics of math. We learned the basics of history, of where we came from. We learned that. I'm not saying they're not learning that now, but there should be testing to show for grades that teachers, I took tests when I was in 3rd grade, math tests.
They take tests all the time, Jeanette.
Then that gives them a grade for the semester, correct?
For sure, no one's negating that. No one, I'm simply saying that there's a difference between an achievement test and a report card. Those are two different things, was all that I was offering. And what we're looking at, what the board typically looks at, and what the state report card is based off of our achievement test. Like there's a line in the sand, how many kids reach that line, as opposed to here is where your current performance in the classroom is based off of all that I as the teacher know about you as a student. This is the report card grade that you're getting. I was simply pointing out the difference, and the state report card is based off of there's a line in the sand, how many kids reach that line. This is that type of a test. There's a line in the sand that says, here's the 3rd grade line, what percentage of our kids or how many of our students are reaching that line. There's value in both sets of data.
There is, but I think we place a little bit more value in this data than we actually do on the grade that they're getting from the teacher who has worked with them. There's a little bit more weight on this
For
one
sure.
than there is on the actual classroom participation and how well they're doing. And the teacher who works with them every day sees that. And so I feel like that teacher's input on the child, I would weigh her value and her input over this.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this is weighted a little more.
And this is not what goes towards the state report card data, but this replicates, I guess, the state report card data. So that's, just to be clear on that, the state report card data is the achievement test. It has nothing to do with report cards.
This is just
Correct,
another
I
piece of
understand
data.
that. But, and that's why I'm saying this, I feel like has a little bit more weight on it than the report card from the classroom.
This is the first piece of achievement data that the two of you have seen as board members, and so perhaps that's why it feels like it carries so much more weight as opposed to getting a broader picture of the data that does come before the board over the course of a year as we get all of those different pieces. As we talked about, we'll start looking at the number of students who are receiving 2 or more Fs. If you're interested in studying grade point averages all the way across, we certainly can do that. So again, this is the first piece of achievement data that the two of you have presented to since you've been on the board. So that's probably why it feels like it's carrying so much more weight.
Therefore, I was requesting 2017, 18, 19 to authenticate this and see the pattern. Patterns are very difficult to read, but I am an economist, I know how to read a pattern. But I should have those data or numbers, which I will later on request to you. 2017, 18, 19, not 2020. It was a bad year across the world, especially in Pakistan.
So we do have a motion before the board.
Motion for what?
You made-
Yeah, I find a motion to have 1, 2, or 3 urgent meeting to have a dialogue. How to improve education of students with the help of our gigantic experience of Tom Hatch, Mary Redcliffe, and myself.
And it's a card that makes me uncomfortable when you say that because all the other board members also have a lot of experience.
She's a scientist in the medical field, he's a businessman, he's a professor in UW Madison or across, and I don't know about you.
But that makes me uncomfortable when you say that.
I mean, all of our experiences are very, very important.
No doubt about it.
I don't see that this meets the criteria of an emergency or urgent meeting according to school board public meeting. Especially that we're having it, we're gonna have it already. We've got it scheduled for this fall that we'll be discussing the current tests. If I would vote against not having those, especially labeling it. That doesn't meet the legal criteria for a school board to gather.
I'm I feel good waiting for the data and then having a board development meeting where we can have dialogue about it. And that's all we will talk about is the data, and that's already scheduled. So I am comfortable waiting for that.
That is October, right? That is October.
If it is October or November, depending when it comes out.
So once we get the data up to 2017, 18, and 19,
So we've already had that data.
yeah, so I can align that data with this guy to find out the pattern.
By then you'll get another one of these and you'll be able to take a look at it.
Then I will get another one in October, so we could have a pattern to find out
Yep.
that if it is, it's just a one test.
But it's not. I can tell you it's not.
Every time.
So you're asking questions that we already know the answers to. This is not false data, this is consistent.
No, I didn't say false data. To enrich the authenticity of this with the help of a previous data, 17, 18, 19,
Yep.
to enrich that this is correct. In itself,
I
suspicious.
mean, I think you're using the term incorrect, that you can take the data from over time, and that's what we've done, I have done in the hospital, we would take data from so many years back and see,
We've looked at it.
and with us not being on the board previously, why would you not want us to at least have that? I mean, that's, so I feel like for him, if he's requesting that, that is.
Tonight is the first time he asked me for this data for those years, so just to be clear, it's not like I've been
No,
ignoring
I'm not
tonight's
saying,
first time,
I'm just
and I'll send it to him tomorrow. We've got it.
It's plenty.
So we have a motion, that's a second. That's a second.
saying.
So any further discussion on this? So the motion before the board is 3 meetings to surround student achievement data. So all those in favor of 3 additional meetings surrounding student achievement data? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion fails. All right, so we will have our regularly scheduled meeting as soon as Dr. Stevenson and I will reach out as soon as we have the fall data, and we'll spend a full special meeting evaluating student achievement data as we have in the past. All right, that completes 7 series. 8.1, monthly expenditures.
From spring all the way until like October to compile that
I have
data.
no idea why the state does that.
Gotta sit on hash or something, or
Figure out all their formulas for growth and all of that stuff, I really don't know. Just last week, the individual student data became available, but they haven't put it into their,
it's like,
it's ridiculous.
Isn't it all computerized?
Oh, yeah, it's a computer test.
By the time you get it,
Yeah.
it's all data.
I mean, when I did the ACT, it was on paper.
Right, or all the color of the dots, right, those big books, yeah, it's all computerized. There's no reason we don't have it the following week.
That's just so foolish.
it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's, so that's a really competitive state contract with each state that does that testing. All these testing companies vie for that contract because it's huge. Every school district must give these tests then. And so you would really think, I always say this to DPI, perhaps you could up the expectations when you put out that state testing contract, right? Why, if we're paying for this anyway, why can't we increase that turnaround time? But
ACT.
and then it's called the Wisconsin Forward now, would be the version of the WKCE booklet that we used to have. So now that's called Wisconsin Forward. And that is on DPI's website. Anybody can go, anybody can go look at any point in time, every single year that those report cards have come out, that is all on the DPI website. So you can dig until your heart's content at years and years worth of data.
So we're on 8.1, expenditures.
Make a motion to approve the monthly expenditures as presented, unless someone has a question. I'll second it.
Questions for Jill on this one? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 8.2, facility project updates, mostly good news here.
Yeah, so for those that were able to come along on the facility tour, you got the opportunity to walk through and check out some of those spaces. I shared an update with the board at the time regarding the Forest Street project. Sadly, we are not going to hold true to our wishes of having all construction out of there. But you've likely noticed every time you drive by that building, the Monco's floor trucks are still there. They've done all the demolition of the flooring that was incorrectly installed both times. When I gave this update to staff this morning, and I failed to mention, somebody asked a fantastic question. So have we paid for them to install this floor incorrectly twice? That answer is no, we have not paid them twice to install it poorly. In fact, they are going to end up paying Monco's flooring for the install, and so we paid for it to be installed one time. It's just going to be the third time that it's being laid down on the floor. Right now, we're running into a challenge that because it was incorrectly installed the second time, they used a lot of the stock that we had, and so that company that incorrectly did it had to order more stock, and it comes in from Germany. And so now there are some delays in getting the rest of the project done until that stock gets here from Germany, and then Monco's flooring from Green Bay will be the ones to install it. And when you walk on the floor, you can look and clearly see when it is installed correctly versus when it was installed incorrectly. It is really a thin rubber flooring and super sensitive to granules underneath that flooring. It leaves a little bump every single time, and the people who are doing the flooring now sand that surface, they vacuum the surface, they clean it extensively, and it is flat as can be, which seems silly to celebrate a flat floor, but it is celebratory worthy when you look at something less than for so long. They are going as quickly as they can. We told them that they couldn't be in Forest Street on Thursday during the open house, because Forest Street literally has every student and family in the building for the open house. The high school does not get as much foot traffic because the kids get their laptops, and there is flooring corrections that need to be done at the high school as well. So the crew is going to be up at the high school on Thursday. So I would say we're really, really close, but we don't have all of the materials to be able to finish it entirely. We would like to schedule an open house for the community at Forest Street sometime this fall. I'm hesitant to put it on the calendar until we are just really confident that it's all done, because at some point you just feel silly that we've attended school there a year and a half and we would invite people in and still see areas not done. All right, and the board got the opportunity to check out all of our other spaces. If there's any questions, we're certainly wide open. I did share that our pool is 30 years old and is in need of some really significant investments. And so Jill and I and Kent are meeting with Upper 90, that same company that we use for our energy efficiency savings in our lighting project, just to see if there's any possibilities. All of the infrastructure is at a point that it is, with all that high chlorine and stuff, even the rooftop unit is corroded beyond repair, and all of the filtering systems, all of that stuff at 30 years is really quite antiquated. And so we will likely be coming to you with some financing options to do some significant pool repair work. We will also apply for some community grants, if that is at all possible. We feel that the pool serves a community service in the swim lessons that we provide. While we do count them as summer school swim lesson times, we live in a river town, and so we believe free swim lessons for all kids as a service to our community. We also have a youth swim team that's not associated with the school that uses the space, as well as our own high school swim team now. So we are hoping that we can engage some of our community partners in perhaps some funding matching or something like that, because the repairs to the pool alone are going to be over $1 million when you look at something that size and it's 30 years old. So that's unfortunate, but we are right on pace with our roofing projects. That's the other significant cost that keeps coming around, as well as blacktop repair. Those are the two big ones. So again, I don't mean to sound like, oh, we finished these big projects, what's next? Because we really do have to celebrate the amazing facility overhaul that's happened in the last 8 years, right? All of our schools look in fantastic shape. And we also have other great resources that we have to maintain. And so it's nice that we can start talking about things like pools, and we're not worried about our roofs caving in on us, and the handicap accessibility challenges and all that stuff that we used to have.
have a comment about this. I understand from history that the pool was created in the early days to stop the drownings in the river. And with the lack of the public pool hours that are usually going on and living on the river, there's been a lot of kids from the river, I have seen, sometimes no one knows. And I strongly believe in our ancestors who created the free swimming and for Blackwood Falls. And I say they were, and it does.
Especially depending on the water level, how fast that
Right.
current is going through
Right.
there, it changes
If they
daily.
open the dam, if they open one of those gates, they drive this so fast, and, you know, if they're not in a spot where they can easily fall out on a beach area. I mean, I've taken my car to town one time when I saw some kids walking up the river. Was a situation, that was on a trail, and parents were having a fight, and the kids hit a gym home, and I thought, if they open the dam, those little kids are. Right. Anyone calls 911, I strongly believe that we need to support our chiefs with the emphasis support safe smoking.
Any questions about facilities?
Next is 3.3 again, I guess, Phil to unpack. The only thing more complex than reading legislation is the budget.
I think this is much simpler than the reading legislation.
We can think.
Sorry. First, I had to put my disclaimer on there for everyone that it's still, even though we've already started our new fiscal year, it's still early in this budget process because we still have students to count on the third Friday. We still have to know what our aid amount is from the state. So these are numbers today and they will change tomorrow and 2 months from now. So, but the things that we do know and if it helps anymore, we set our first preliminary budget in June, third week in June, before the governor signed the budget July 5th, right? Dr. Stevenson included in the packet all the provisions related to the budget, but I'm just going to highlight some of the biggies that really affect us. Revenue limits, that was the biggest one for us. The per pupil adjustment in the revenue limit of $325 per pupil in both of the fiscal years. Certainly is helpful, but what helped us even more is that low revenue ceiling threshold increase. So all districts, no matter where they were at in the formula, were able to increase by $325 per pupil. If you were below 11,000, you had to go up to 11,000. So we actually had about $650 increase, not $325, just because we were able to go up to that $11,000. So our revenue limit actually increased by 1.2 million, and then for the 23-24 school year, and for the 24-25 school year, we'll look at another 338,000. So you don't see another bump in that threshold, low revenue ceiling threshold, to help us out for that second year. We still get that 325 per pupil when we're declining enrollment. It's a little bit more complicated for us that second year. When I'm looking at that, we'll fall a little bit short that second year by about $350,000. Those are super early estimates. Those are modest increases for salary and benefits, kind of based on past trends and what we've been doing. And that also does not include ESSER. We have about $1 million a year of ESSER funded positions, just under, so.
Just to be clear on that, if we continue to fund the currently ESSER funded positions and your moderate increases total of 1.3, I just want to make sure.
Yep, that's correct. All right, any questions on that before we move on? Equalization aid, one of the other things that we've been recipient of is a high poverty aid, and we received about $91,000 a year. That has been eliminated for this next year. And what will happen, we'll either receive it in the form of equalization aid or property taxes, because it's within that revenue limit calculation. So we're not, all of the aid, but we're get it in a different way. It could increase the property taxes, or it just depends on what equalization aid is going to do. And that's always a challenge to predict what that's going to do, because we just learned, Brian Brewer from Baird let us know on Friday, I think it was Thursday or Friday, that they believe our increase in our property values is going to be going up 13.8%. So the state went up last May 12.8%. They're estimating all of our townships, all of our municipalities, all 19 of them at about 13.8%. So we're looking a little bit richer in the formula than the state average. And if we have a declining enrollment situation, that will help us in the equalization aid formula, because we have more money behind each pupil. The state shares in the cost based on where you fall in that money behind each pupil. I don't know how to better explain it than that. So it's possible we could get less aid than I estimated, about the same. Just looking at my forecast model, I think it's going to be about the same that I estimated, just because everybody is increasing in the state in that property value. I guess we'll see what happens. What it does do is we use that property value for our levy, and when we divide our levy by that property value, our mill rate drops significantly. So that gives us an opportunity for some more debt defeasance. We'll want to keep an eye on the total levy when we do that, but that certainly is something we'll want to talk about. I had included a small defeasance in the preliminary budget, but perhaps we could do a little bit more. So that's a little bit about that as well. They did put more money in the state equalization aid pot, so that they can help counteract that $325 per pupil increase, so that doesn't all fall on the tax levy. So that's another piece of that. School levy credit that was on that sheet as well, I just wanted to mention that. It's kind of a little bit of a misnomer. School levy credit doesn't actually come to the school district. It shows up on the property tax bills as a credit for the property taxpayers. It does reduce their tax bill, but in no way does that ever come to the school district. We never see those funds. It goes to municipalities, and they report it on the tax bill, and taxpayers pay that credit back and make that tax rate. Categorical aid, the per pupil aid that we received the last several years, that's going to remain at $742 per pupil for both years. Again, this aid could actually go down, which I'm estimating a decrease for this year based on enrollment. So far, again, it's the same dollar amount per kid, but if our enrollment declines, we would actually see a decrease in that aid amount. Special ed categorical aid, that's going up from 31% this past year to 33.3%. For us in dollars, that's about $200,000 more. And that's just an estimate as well. School-based mental health services grant was also a provision on that budget sheet. We used to write a competitive grant. Dr. Severson talked about that this morning. There's back to school in service. And now those funds will be distributed to all school districts on a per pupil basis. And I think it's like $31 per pupil. So for us, that's about $50,000, if I'm reading it correctly.
And that grant was 75.
Correct. Pupil transportation aid, I had to go figure it out, and once I did, it wasn't really worth putting on paper because it's another $1,300 in aid, but it certainly helps. But since I figured it out, I wanted to share that that pupil transportation aid was for transporting kids more than 12 miles home to school. We only claimed 54 kids in that category. So $25 more kid is $1,300. High cost transportation aid, this is one that's puzzled me the last several years, why we don't receive that, because we have a large school district, square miles wise, but we're pretty efficient in our transportation costs. And I am wondering now, I was trying to do the calculation myself, but it's kind of impossible without all the state factors. I wouldn't be surprised if we might receive this aid now that we bought that second bus. So we increased our costs quite a bit this past year. And so we'll see, we might not qualify for that high cost transportation aid.
Be interesting if it offsets the cost of the bus.
So that's what I'm really interested in, is that maybe if it does, if we do qualify for that, now guess what? We're gonna be behind the bus. We're in a situation right now where we bought about 6 buses within 2 years' time, a year and a half time. So we have all of those buses that are hitting us right now at that 10, 12-year mark, so. School library aid has just been increasing like gangbusters as well. That's based on different investments the state has from traffic tickets and things like that. And so since interest earnings have been up, those funds have been increasing. For example, last year we received $96,000, and those funds are just for the LMC, for just books for technology. So that was another. That was about $20,000 more than the prior. Those were the highlights from that. There's a lot of other things in there. Some of them don't affect us at all. Don't get sparsity aid either, so that's not in here. So I just want to share some of those, and I can update as we know more.
Transportation,
Sure.
is that 12 miles round trip or is that just a one?
This one way. There's other categories too, that we receive. There's like, I don't know, 5 different categories based on how many miles school to home kind of thing. So we receive something on those other categories, but it's not $400 for people. Like, sure.
This varsity, because we are so geographically big, we thought that we should have qualified for that for the last couple of years, but they capped that at districts of 500 students, so we are well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We have too many students
Way
to
less.
qualify for varsity.
Yeah.
Sure. Good news. That's right. Any questions about that?
That is the 8 series, meeting minutes, 9:21. This was July's meeting, no, it's not theirs.
Any motion to approve the minutes as presented?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? District admin report?
Sure, first I'd like to update the board, everybody on the process. Since we were last together, we've got a new staff at high school, a new leadership staff, and so I just wanted to let everyone know the process that I used. So when I received Luke's resignation, I believe strongly that those that live in a building should have a voice in who their leader is. And so I sent an email and a phone call to the whole high school staff asking who wanted to be a part of the process. I had 19 people say that they wanted in, which was, in my opinion, fantastic engagement for the first week in August, right? So that was on a Friday. I scheduled 2 Zoom meetings for Monday morning, and I made a proposal to them, and I said, this is part of a hiring committee. That means that everybody that's here is going to share their voices, all of those things. And I shared that I had an awful lot of faith and confidence in Kim's leadership, and I felt like it would be serve our organization very well to move Kim into that principal role and then post an assistant principal role. And I don't take that lightly because, again, I feel like we should always be looking for the strongest leaders, and the staff should have a voice. Every single one of the 19 said that they 100% agreed with that process. And I also was very clear and said, I don't want you to just agree because it's August and we're concerned about timing. I want Kim to earn the position based off of the exceptional work that Kim has done for us, not because we're in an emergency timeline situation. And the staff wholeheartedly agreed with that. And so I was very excited to call Kim. Is she hiding behind the pillar? I can't see her yet. I was very excited to call Kim and offer her the position. And then we immediately posted the assistant principal position and collected internal and external candidates. 11 staff members from the high school joined us for interview process for assistant principal. And I would like to introduce to the board, I know you've met him before, but Mr. Nate Garrison was selected by that team as our assistant principal at the high school. And so those of you that joined us for the all-staff gathering this morning, you heard an awful lot of enthusiasm from the staff for their leadership team. And that is a great, hopefully a great feeling for both of you to feel that. Of course, to Dan, that's okay, that's okay, right? I would say it's a soft dead, be easy, not like really, we want you strong and healthy and strong. I did. Yeah. However, Dan didn't turn out all that in the deal because we have another fantastic staff member who's worked for us. He was a middle school special ed teacher when he first joined us, and he's been a high school special ed teacher, and now he's been working over at the WIN program. Mr. Chris Holney finished his administrative degree last spring, and the middle school was very excited to welcome him on board, and he was thrilled to join them as the Dean of Students isn't quite an administrative position, but it's certainly a step an awful lot closer. So that is the one position that is still open. It's a very challenging role. We've appreciated Chris's leadership there. The good news with the WIN program is the WIN program serves students from the middle school and high school. So Dan and Chris and Kim and Nate will still all have their hands in that program. We just need to find the teacher that is going to be able to facilitate the bulk of it. So I just wanted you to know the process that I use because I take hiring very seriously because it is that opportunity, right? When you hire, there's an old saying that the fastest way to improve your schools is through your hiring practices. And I just feel really great about the leadership shifts that have happened. So, welcome, Nate. This is first board meeting attendance with all of us, and we're excited to get forward or move forward.
You made it exciting for me.
That's right. All right, so there is that part. I do have for all the board members before you leave, Basil Holder is an absolutely just wonderful human being. And he's heavily involved in the Spring Creek School restoration. And I don't know if you guys have been by there, it's on my biking route. But that group has really done a great job. It's all repainted. They put back some playground equipment, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And so they're having an open house, and Basil came to visit me and thought that it would be a fantastic gesture if anybody from the district or from the board would be able to go to that open house on September 9th. So I will give each of you a flyer. Basil has a very personal, familial relationship with Spring Creek School, as his brother was the owner of it. And right? Yes, thank you. So he dropped off these books that are just great historical glimpses into the story of Spring Creek School. Basil, being creative thinker that he is, suggested that he thought it would be great if our board would hold a board meeting at Spring Creek School. And I said, do they have electricity? And he said, we do have electricity. So, yes, we'd be inside. So anyway, he was very excited to share, and so I will pass these up before you guys leave. But there's a open house flyer and a book for you, and then a very strong invitation. Of course, we would love some of our grade levels to go tour Spring Creek School. It is a beautiful resource, and they've got it all set up like a museum. So it is a one-room schoolhouse museum right in our backyard.
So sad that we did not get Spring Creek at Red Creek.
Yeah, it was the cost. It really what it boiled down to. Yep.
But I'm glad they fixed it up.
Yes, it looks beautiful if you have not been past it. Another piece that I wanted to share with you, so just a reminder to everybody, our district joined the Northwest Co-op for, I couldn't remember my directions, Cardinal, Northwest Co-op for our health insurance a few years ago. That co-op continues to grow. We are up to about 30 schools that are part of that co-op. And if you recall, one of the greatest advantages for us being part of that co-op is that our group size got so large that one or two bumps in the road don't dramatically rock your world for your renewal for that year because the group size is so large. Our renewal this year was 11.
It was 10.
It was capped at 11%. So that's the other advantage, because we have this large bargaining power, we are able to negotiate 2 years out. And so for this past year, the highest it could have been was 11%. And so the co-op just sent this out today. He said, we came across some news that the state ETF board last week that he wanted to share. According to their memo, it said that they're anticipating increases for their health plans, averaging 14.6% as of January. And the United Healthcare plans are going to experience a 25% premium increase. And so if you just consider a 25% increase, that would be a deal breaker for us. We would have to make some serious plan changes. And so he was just saying is what this tells us is our co-op remains one of the most financially stable and competitive health insurance vehicles in the market today. The work we've done together in growing the co-op has gotten us to a place where the days of unexpectedly large increases, such as those being put out by ETF, are a thing of the past for us. And so he was congratulating those districts that have made that decision to join the co-op and have stuck with them. And so I wanted to share. This was year 2, and so they will be negotiating again this coming year. So, but for this group, this was for the coming year. Yes, and we don't know what ours cap is going to be capped at for the coming year. Other randomness, I'm sorry, I kind of a lot of things tonight. As we were talking about budget, we started talking about our utility costs and just a significant increase in utility costs. As Jill shared with you in June, that was one of the reasons that we, one of the holes that we had to fill with end of year funds was our significant increase in utilities. And I just want to talk through this for a moment. We are extremely appreciative for the beautiful field house that we have the opportunity to use. I want to remind everyone that every single time we set foot in the field house, we are billed for the utilities, for the gymnasium portion, and we are billed for their custodian to go in and clean that area. That cost increased significantly this year. And when we have youth sports that do tournaments, and Jill Kent and I were talking about this today, they always want to play in the field house because it feels like big kid stuff, right? They want to play in the field house. And we don't charge the youth sports to use our facilities because we want to promote Tiger Pride, we want them to be strong athletes, all of that stuff. But that is a very concrete expense for us. When a youth sport has a tournament in the field house, we pay utilities and custodial costs for that entire day. And we've never charged it back to them. We are considering, and the reason I'm bringing it to you for some thoughts, we're not going to change anything right now, because you may hear about this from community members. We are considering saying to those youth sports, you are welcome to use any of the many gymnasiums that the district owns. You can use the high school, the Sam Young or the West Gym, the middle school, the Red Creek, the Forestry. Like, we've got a lot of gymnasiums, and we will not charge you because we can be far more efficient in our cleaning and utilities than being billed back by them. Or if they really want to use the field house, we would pass that direct expense onto them. It feels different to us because we are literally paying that expense, whereas our building, we would have had air circulating anyway. We would, you know, there's just so many things that we would have had going anyway. So again, when it is a youth sport associated with Parks and Rec, or like those great Northwest teams, and we want them all to be successful, right? I believe so strongly that kids that are involved in that stuff are more successful in school, so I'm not trying to negate that. But it is becoming a burdensome cost. And those tournaments are sometimes moneymakers for those youth groups. And so just that idea that either we tell them they can use one of our gyms and we won't charge them, or if they really want the field house, that we would pass those actual costs on. Again, not making that recommendation now, but wanted you to start thinking about it. And we can talk about it in the future. Finally, at the last meeting, Jeanette had asked about the timing of getting the packet out, and I just wanted to have a full conversation about that. I will tell you that we've talked about this before, and we certainly can cut it off and send it out earlier, but know that there will be some things that will be missed then. For example, the unusually hazardous transportation that would not have been on if the packet had to be out Tuesday or Wednesday, because we didn't get it back from Sheriff Waldera until Thursday. So there are some items that get put on the agenda from the initial to the final because of the timing, and I'm able to do that. But if the collective group would like the packet out sooner than Thursday, just know that there will be some things that will be cut off that agenda, and we'll have to wait another month to get there. I don't think that's a deal breaker at all, just letting you know that that's why the timing has landed where it is, so.
Jeanette, did you feel like you had enough time this month to take a look at it?
No,
No?
no. Because when I work full-time, and I'm not just a school board member, I'm involved in my church. I do things on the weekends, feel like I can look at this. And this weekend, I worked on work stuff. So sometimes it doesn't allow me the time that I want to be able to dedicate to looking at all the information. So, no, I do not feel I have enough time.
I know you didn't last time because you were on vacation, and I had that happen, and it's really, really hard. But
It is, and I feel like for a lot of things, like the transportation thing with that one to them, it would have been something that I would have felt like, oh, gee, I wish I would have known that sooner, you know. But there are times where there's a conflict, and if I had it a few days earlier, it would be better.
I've been on the board for 15 years and been through a lot of different methods of how we get our information. And there was a time where we got it printed in the mail, and probably on Saturday, we would get the packet. And it was a problem because I thought board members would come to the meeting and open up their envelope, and then that was the first time it was gone. And then it advanced to we get a flash drive sent to us in the mail again, and it was up to us to load that onto the computer. And I think we got the information as early as Friday, but then this now recently has been the earliest. It does work for me because we have so much information to get it electronically like this. But the fact that it's on the internet, wherever I'm at, if I'm at a state school board meeting or something like that, and I can access it from any place. If I'm in Michigan with my grandkids, I can access it late at night or any time, and I really appreciate that. Probably for the last 6 or maybe 10 years, we've done it this way.
All of mine, so.
Okay, so 10 years we've had it this way, and it's exactly the most efficient way.
Oh, Moodle, no, we were Moodle for a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, but you can access Moodle.
Right, it's still internet based, right?
So, I mean, this is such an improvement from what we used to do. A paper packet that then people would help them to. Understanding that we wouldn't have all the information. And I think those advice that are something. It's 5 days. It's not any problem for me to get this. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Well, for the final. I'm fine with taking it out. If that's 5 days.
Yeah, and I don't have an issue covering it, that's just me, I think you're making it far. Tom?
I'm a visitor at JSO, if it matters.
What did you just say?
I'm busy every day, so I don't know if it matters.
I mean, it's a thought that I can, because I just feel like sometimes, but it's not that easy.
I prefer to get a more complete packet. I mean, that's purchase what it is and get a complete packet, but a smaller packet and then learn about other things when I get here. I mean, I don't absolutely review every word of everything that absolutely very transparent how much information you get to get a packet of seven, well, just
Right.
Jill's is 71 pages.
I was gonna say, I've only been on the board since May.
Yeah, so, I mean,
You don't bring all that stuff.
I'm one that does do that because
And so if you want a printed thing of the board packet, you certainly can ask that of Marty. She could, when it is final, she prints it all off for my binder. She could print it off. You could stop and pick it up on Friday or, if that works better for you, to get hard copies instead of printing.
I will do.
You are asking her to do that for you?
Yeah, I will send you an email. I'm not receiving on my machine in my home or even here. So I will do traditionally.
So that's a problem if you're not able to get into your district email.
No, maybe I don't know how to do it.
So let's fix that too, right? Like, let's also teach you how to do that.
Okay.
So that you have access to stuff and then
Yeah,
for sure.
I did all those things you have explained me day first, like shared drive and this drive. I go through all those things, but I don't see a packet. But I like the idea with this discussion. I will send her an email and will print out for you.
I could just do that.
I like the hard copy. I like a hard copy. I was born 1776.
Jeanette, she does not usually print off all those checks. She doesn't usually print those off for me.
I can do that.
Okay, well, and
I'm just one of those that this is.
I'm not saying she won't, I'm just saying she doesn't for me, and there are packets out there, right? There are some right outside the door, so those are available at the meeting, so just so you know that.
Yeah, I like to look at it.
Yep.
And the phone is just a little bit too small for
Agreed,
me.
agreed. Look at
And my
you.
laptop, I did bring it out, but sometimes I get frustrated because it's very slow. And so,
You could probably go through it faster on paper than you can on your.
I can. Yes, I can.
What day would you like it available, the paper copies available? If it's out on Thursday, do you want it Thursday afternoon or Friday?
Could I get it Thursday afternoon?
I would print it at
Marty.
the same time.
Because you leave before I get here.
Oh,
Would you just take it to your house? Can I do that?
I
So,
remember to do that.
yeah, so when the board packet is out, we can get them printed. When she sends out the link, she can also say, and I have your copies here. So I am usually here after.
I will hear it after. 4:30.
Usually, but not every month, right?
Yeah.
Someone can be there.
And you go home, right?
You go.
And I know.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're still okay with Thursday then?
that's fine.
And if it's ready earlier, I can do that. And I will be a little stronger advocate for the people in the back getting their stuff to me in a more timely manner as well.
And there are, if you're in that folder early, stuff does sort of populates.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can, sometimes I get ahead of the reading a little bit, right? If I'm looking for something for a past meeting and I can see the next meeting's starting to populate. I'll do that.
I didn't feel like there was some time with this.
It was, no, not this one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things open, but it's not the same.
Right, nothing improves.
Further,
That is all I got.
UASP, other, I see there's a bunch of conferences coming out.
We have a meeting, a board meeting, September 8th and 9th, so I will miss this preparation. And I will remind everyone about October 5th, is that regional meeting that we usually have. And that's the election.
So Marty, will you please send an email out to the board members and myself asking who would like to ride and who would like to be registered for the regional meeting on October 5th in Galesville at Trenton Pool? Thank you.
And I trust everyone's getting a ton of communications from WASD, available trainings. And that's all.
Conference workshop attendance. School board connection opportunities. I want to mention the back to school bash at the Ho-Chunk Nation. And CCU is also sponsoring something they're calling it back to school bash. I don't remember the date of that one. The Ho-Chunk Nation one, I just put it up, is this Wednesday, from 3 to 6, at the E1 Center. I think the CCU one is next Tuesday at 6 or something, I seem to remember.
And then a reminder that our district-wide open house is this Thursday from 2 to 6, and so that means all buildings are open, staff are there, families will be dropping off their supplies, you're welcome to roam freely. If you'd like.
Friends of the Library has a mini golf event. I think the TCO is planning to be there. All right, future agenda item identification. So it sounds like we're gonna add some more in-depth look at some of the student achievements data. So,
Yes.
and again, as soon as that data comes out, we'll be setting that date. See, I'm not making additional. So at this point, I move that we adjourn to closed session pursuant to the statutes 19.85 subparagraph 1 subparagraph G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body to determine oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely